Making a statement, How Black Panther Wakanda Forever is setting a new standard in streaming views. And Drawing from the Greats, I talk with George and Tammy creator about how powerful women influence his work. Welcome to Advocate Today. I'm Tracy E. Gilchrist. Thank you for joining me. Marvel's Black Panther Wakanda Forever is breaking more records on the small screen. It is the most watched Marvel film premiere in Disney Plus history. The sequel film gained the most streams over its first 5 days on the streaming platform. It was also the first film in 2022 to stay at #1 at the box office for 4 consecutive weekends. Black Panther 2 Wakanda Forever is also the highest grossing female-led superhero movie, surpassing Captain Marvel, Wonder Woman, and Black Widow. The film is nominated for 5 Academy Awards, including Angela Bassett for Best Supporting Actress. Bassett already won both the Golden Globe and the Critics' Choice Award for Best Supporting Actress for her role as Queen Ramonda. One writer and producer who is no stranger to award season is Abe Sylvia. He's led numerous works that have gained critical acclaim, like The Eyes of Tammy Faye, where Jessica Chastain won the Oscar for Best Actress. He also co-executive produced Netflix's Dead to Me and produced Nurse Jackie. His newest role as executive producer and creator of Showtime's George and Tammy is also getting the attention of critics and fans alike for its gripping account of Tammy Wynette and George Jones's relationship. Let's pick up on my conversation with Abe, where we discuss their battles with addiction and the influence women have had on Abe's career. The show also, I should say, Michael Shannon, of course, plays George Jones, and the show also touches on these beautiful artists, but it touches on his alcoholism, substance abuse, and some domestic abuse, and so it takes on these important topics. And I wonder, I know that you had this in the works for a very long time, but I think something like substance abuse these days, after this pandemic, after a lot of people are looking at themselves, I think, and re-examining relationships, I wonder if you would talk a little bit about that piece of George Jones's character in the show.
Well, it's really the driving piece. He's a man who is in his disease for all 6 episodes. So every moment, whether it's his zeal, his lust for life, his making impulsive choices, his overcompensating and love bombing people, to the moments where he's violent, it's all related to his alcoholism and his disease. And so these two things are sort of living in conflict for George. Is his love for Tammy and being sublimated to the bottle, to look at every action he takes, including flipping the table, including falling in love with her, it's all connected to degrees of alcoholism. When he finally, gets, I don't want to give away the ending, so spoiler alert, when George does in fact get sober, he doesn't learn the first lesson of sobriety, is that you can only save yourself, you can't save someone else. And that's the great tragedy of George and Tammy.
Right. Yes. Thank you for that. And then I also wanted to touch on something that feels incredibly current, is the idea of bodily autonomy, which I did not know a lot of this about Tammy, which is that first off, she underwent shock therapy at some point when she was pregnant with one of her children. And then while delivering her child with George Jones, was given a gorilla hysterectomy that caused her to live in pain for the rest of her life. And I think, whether or not this was written before, it comes at this moment where we're having these discussions. And would you talk about that, please?
Well, I think that's why Tammy Wynette is relatable to so many women. This not, the eugenics and doctors, making decisions for women is not new, and and yet, Tammy Wynette is not a tragic figure. I don't believe that in any way, shape, or form. One of the promises I made to Georgette was, Georgette was saying, my mother, terrible things happened to her in her life, and she just kept overcoming them until she couldn't anymore. And that does not make someone's life a tragedy. We don't talk, Tammy Wynette dies ostensibly of a drug overdose, but we don't, as Elvis did, and we don't talk about Elvis's life as a tragedy. You
Mhm.
know, Tammy Wynette had 20 number one hits. That is not a tragic life.
That's incredible.
She was somebody who was deep into her addiction when she passed, and that is very sad. But this is an incredibly accomplished woman who overcame insurmountable odds to have a voice. Now,
Mhm.
whether people take exception to, how that voice was used on some of those songs, that's fine. But it's like, this is in order to be a person in the world, to be a woman in the world at this time, and have a platform to say anything,
Mhm.
is a win. And so I don't, for her detractors, I don't really have much time for them. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, no, I see that. I love that. You're talking about Tammy Wynette and, her being someone who kind of rises from the ashes continually and is really, I mean, I see her as a pretty strong character in this show. And I have to say, I feel that she has some similarities with Tammy Faye.
Uh-huh.
And I wonder if you would talk a little bit about that, especially since you wrote Eyes of Tammy Faye and
Yeah.
you have this, vessel, Jessica Chastain, portraying these incredible women.
Well, I think I think how they're different is probably, I mean, they're both performative women named Tammy who, struggled with addiction. But I think that's where this, and they were both in entertainment to some degree. Tammy Faye was in, was obviously a preacher, but I think that was even more entertainment than it was,
Mhm.
just preaching. Um, but I think they are more different. I think
Mm.
Tammy Wynette was a great artist, and how they're similar. I think they're both women who had something to say, but I think their messages were sort of very very different. But you're right. Both sort of extreme personalities who
Mhm.
lived larger than life lives. And I'm certainly as a gay man drawn to women like that. I think there's
Mhm.
something certainly for gay men of my generation. I'm so grateful that this is changing for the kids coming up nowadays. But I didn't have um, gay men to look up to. There was a handful, and so where I got my strength was out of these women who expressed, sort of my emotionality in ways that I couldn't. And I think that is the sort of the great connection gay men have to women like this, is this sort of like these women who live their emotional truths that
Mhm.
feels akin to me, that was not akin to the men that I was seeing out in the world. That I think that is the great connection that we have to women like Judy Garland or
Of
Tammy
course, yeah.
Tammy Wynette.
Mhm.
The sort of idol worship of extreme women.
Mhm.
I think that's really unique to gay men.
Thank you so much to Abe for joining me. You can open the Advocate channel on YouTube for our full conversation, and you can now stream all episodes of George and Tammy now on Paramount Plus and Showtime. Our parent company, Equal Pride, is recognizing Black trailblazers and changemakers each day in honor of Black History Month. Today, we honor Pauli Murray. Murray is the first African American woman to be ordained as a priest and was an advocate for racial and gender equality. Murray's life and work not only took place in the church, but also in the courtroom. She was a lawyer by trade and was active in the civil rights movement as a leader. Murray was among the first to argue that segregation laws were unconstitutional. Thurgood Marshall cited her work 10 years later in Brown v. Board of Education and called Murray's work the Bible of the civil rights movement. She was ordained in 1977 by the Episcopal Church and today is seen as a Black and queer icon. The U.S. Mint announced Murray will be featured on U.S. quarters in 2024. Thank you for joining me on this Advocate today. You can open the Advocate channel wherever you stream for more Black History Month spotlights. You can also find content and coverage that advocates for all online at advocatechannel.com. I'm Tracy E. Gilchrist. I'll see you next time.